Hi, I'm Samuel Thompson. My brother stood up at my wedding reception and announced he was the real groom, said he'd been seeing my fiancée for 2 years. That I was just the placeholder, the safety net. He even had a ring ready. 300 guests went silent. My bride-to-be turned pale. My parents looked devastated. But I didn't cry. I didn't throw punches. I didn't collapse. I smiled, because the officiant had just handed me a document 30 minutes earlier. A document my brother didn't know existed. One that proved I'd known about their affair for 6 months. One that showed every hotel receipt, every deleted message, every lie. Some battles aren't won by making a scene. They're won in silence, with preparation, and with the law on your side. Want to know how I buried them both without saying a single word? Let me show you. I was 10 steps ahead the entire time. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. The venue was Brookhaven Estate, a historic mansion tucked into the hills overlooking Autumn Ridge. We'd booked it a year in advance. White columns, sprawling gardens, a ballroom with crystal chandeliers that caught the afternoon light like frozen rain. It was perfect. Or it was supposed to be. The ceremony had gone smoothly. I stood at the altar watching Natalie Robinson walk down the aisle in her ivory gown, veil trailing behind her like a whisper. She smiled at me, that soft, familiar smile I'd woken up to for 3 years. My brother Ryan stood beside me as my best man, hands folded, expression unreadable. When the officiant asked if anyone objected, the room stayed silent. I remember exhaling slowly, thinking we'd made it through the hardest part. We hadn't. The reception started at 5. Cocktails flowed, the string quartet played something classical I couldn't name, and guests mingled on the terrace. Natalie and I did our first dance to a song she'd chosen months ago. Her hand rested on my shoulder, her eyes locked on mine. Everything felt right. Everything felt earned. At 6:30, after dinner was served, the speeches began. My father went first, told a story about teaching me to ride a bike when I was 7. Everyone laughed. Natalie's maid of honor went next, cried halfway through, made everyone else cry too. Then Ryan stood up. He tapped his glass with a fork, the sharp clink cutting through the conversations. The room quieted. He cleared his throat, looked around at the 300 faces watching him, and smiled. Not a warm smile, a confident one. "I need to say something," he began, voice steady, amplified by the microphone someone had handed him. Something I should have said a long time ago. I felt my stomach tighten. Natalie's hand found mine under the table, squeezed once. "Sam's a great guy," Ryan continued, "reliable, steady. The kind of person you can count on to show up, do what's expected, and never rock the boat." A few people chuckled nervously. I didn't move. "But here's the thing," he said, turning to look directly at me. "Natalie didn't choose him because she loved him. She chose him because he was safe." The room went still. No clinking glasses, no shuffling chairs, just silence pressing down like a weight. Ryan reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. He opened it slowly, deliberately, revealing a diamond ring that caught the chandelier light. "Natalie and I have been together for 2 years, he said, voice louder now, more certain. "We've been planning this for months. I'm the one she comes to when she's scared. I'm the one she talks to at night when Sam's asleep. I'm the real groom here." Gasps rippled through the crowd. Someone dropped a fork. My mother made a sound like she'd been punched. Natalie stood up so fast her chair tipped backward. "Ryan, what are you doing?" Her voice cracked, high and thin. He looked at her, softer now. "I'm setting us free." I sat there, hands folded on the white tablecloth, staring at the centerpiece in front of me. Yellow roses and baby's breath, tied with a silk ribbon. I focused on the ribbon, the way it curled at the ends. My father started to stand. My uncle shouted something I couldn't make out. Natalie was crying now, mascara streaking down her cheeks, hands covering her mouth. But I didn't move. I didn't shout. I didn't grab my brother by the collar and drag him outside. I smiled. A small, quiet smile that started at the corner of my mouth and didn't reach my eyes. Because 30 minutes earlier, right after the ceremony ended, the officiant had pulled me aside. His name was Reverend Hayes, a kind man in his 60s who'd known my family for years. He handed me a manila envelope, sealed, my name written across the front in neat block letters. "Your attorney asked me to give this to you after the vows," he'd said quietly. "Said you'd know what it meant." I'd opened it in the small side room where we'd taken our formal photos. Inside was a single document, printed on law firm letterhead. Affidavit of fraud and emotional distress. Beneath it, 3 separate attachments. Hotel receipts from the Grandshire Inn, dated over 18 months. Text message transcripts between Natalie and Ryan, recovered from a cloud backup she didn't know I had access to. Photos of them together at a cabin in Pinecrest Valley, a place she told me she was visiting her sister. My attorney had prepared everything. Filed it with the county clerk 2 days ago. All it needed was my signature to proceed. I'd folded the document carefully, slipped it back into the envelope, and walked out to the reception with it tucked inside my jacket pocket. Now, sitting at the head table while my brother declared himself the real groom, I reached into that pocket and felt the envelope's edge. Ryan was still talking, still holding that ring, still convinced he'd won something. Natalie was sobbing, looking between us like she couldn't decide which role to play. I stood up slowly. The room's attention shifted to me. 300 pairs of eyes, waiting for the explosion, the breakdown, the scene. I buttoned my jacket, adjusted my tie, walked calmly to where Ryan stood. He looked at me, chin raised, daring me to react. I didn't raise my voice, didn't clench my fists. "You're right about one thing," I said quietly, just loud enough for the front tables to hear. "Natalie didn't choose me because she loved me." His expression flickered. Confusion. "She chose me because I'm the one with the trust fund," I continued. "The one with the investment portfolio our grandfather left me. The one whose name is on the deed to the house in Maplewood Heights." Natalie's face went white. "And you," I turned to Ryan, "you thought you were clever. Thought you could swoop in at the last second, play the hero, take what you wanted." I pulled the envelope from my pocket and held it up. "But I've known for 6 months. Every hotel, every lie, every time she told me she was working late." Ryan's confidence cracked. "You're bluffing." "Am I?" I opened the envelope, pulled out the first page, and held it where he could see. "Grandshire Inn, March 14th, room 237. You paid with a credit card in your name." His face drained of color. I turned to Natalie. She was shaking now, hands trembling at her sides. "I didn't make a scene," I said evenly. "I didn't scream or beg. I documented everything. I hired a forensic accountant to track every dollar you spent that I gave you. I contacted an attorney 6 weeks ago." The room was so quiet I could hear someone breathing heavily 3 tables away. "This wedding," I gestured around the room, "it was never about love. It was about giving you enough rope to hang yourselves in front of everyone who matters." Ryan took a step back. "Sam, wait." "No," I said, voice still calm, still controlled. "You wanted to be the real groom? Congratulations, you can have her. But you're not getting a dime of what she thought she'd walk away with." I turned to the crowd. My voice carried now, clear and firm. "The bar's still open. The band's still playing. Enjoy the rest of the evening. I've already paid for everything." Then I walked out. Through the ballroom, past the terrace, down the stone steps to the parking lot where my car waited. I didn't look back, didn't wait for apologies or explanations. I just left, calm, prepared, free. Because some wars aren't won with shouting. They're won in silence. And I'd been silent for 6 months, building a case they never saw coming. It started on a Tuesday in March. I was working late at the downtown office, finishing a proposal for a client meeting the next morning. Natalie had texted around 7, saying she'd be home late, another planning session for a conference her company was hosting in May. I'd replied with a thumbs up, told her I'd save her some dinner. Around 9:30, I closed my laptop and headed home. Our house in Maplewood Heights sat at the end of a quiet street, 2 stories. Brick facade, the kind of place we'd talked about filling with furniture we'd pick out together. I pulled into the driveway and noticed her car wasn't there yet. Inside, the house felt empty in that particular way it does when you're expecting someone who isn't coming. I reheated leftover pasta, ate standing at the kitchen counter, scrolled through my phone while I chewed. That's when I saw it. A notification from our shared cloud storage. New photos uploaded to the family album. I clicked it absently, expecting pictures from her work event. Or maybe something funny she'd screenshotted. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. Instead, I saw Natalie and Ryan standing on a hiking trail I didn't recognize. Her arm around his waist, his hand on her shoulder. Both of them smiling like they were the only two people in the world. The timestamp said the photo was taken that afternoon, 3:15. Not at a conference planning session, not at work. I stared at the screen for what felt like an hour but was probably only 30 seconds. My pasta went cold on the plate. The kitchen light hummed above me. I didn't call her, didn't text, didn't throw the phone across the room. I opened my laptop and started looking. First, I checked the cloud storage history. She'd uploaded dozens of photos over the past few months. Most were innocent. Pictures of coffee shops, sunsets, her office. But scattered among them were others. Ryan, at a restaurant I'd never been to. Ryan in her car. Ryan, standing in front of a cabin with pine trees in the background. I downloaded every single one, created a folder on my desktop labeled backup files so it wouldn't draw attention if she ever looked. Then I logged into our cell phone account. We were on a family plan, had been since we moved in together. I pulled up her text message logs. She'd deleted the conversations from her phone, but the carrier kept records, metadata, timestamps, phone numbers. Ryan's number appeared hundreds of times. Late-night calls, morning texts, conversations that lasted hours. I exported the records, saved them to the same folder. By midnight, I had 3 months of evidence. But I didn't stop there. I opened our shared credit card statements. Started going through charges line by line. Grand Share Inn, $240. March 14th. I looked up the hotel. 40 minutes outside the city. The kind of place couples went for romantic weekends. I kept scrolling. Another charge. Bellamy's Steakhouse, $183. April 2nd. I remembered that night. Natalie said she was having dinner with her college roommate who was in town. The charge was for 2 people, 2 steaks, a bottle of wine. I printed the statement, highlighted every suspicious charge in yellow, started a new document listing each one with dates and amounts. Somewhere around 2 in the morning, Natalie came home. I heard her car in the driveway, the front door opening, her heels clicking on the hardwood. I closed my laptop quickly, walked out to meet her in the hallway. "Hey," she said, smiling, dropping her purse on the entry table. "Sorry I'm so late. The planning session ran forever." "No problem," I replied. "Did you eat?" "Yeah, we ordered pizza." She kissed my cheek, the same casual gesture she'd done 1,000 times. "I'm exhausted. I'm gonna shower and crash." I watched her walk upstairs, heard the bathroom door close, the water start running. I went back to my laptop and kept working. Over the next 2 weeks, I became a detective in my own relationship. I installed a recovery program on our desktop computer that pulled deleted files from the hard drive, found emails she'd archived, conversations with Ryan going back almost 2 years, planning trips, talking about futures, complaining about me. In one email, dated 6 months earlier, she'd written, "Sam's sweet, but he's not what I need long term. Ryan gets me in a way Sam never will." Ryan had replied, "We just need to wait for the right moment. Let him think everything's fine." I read that email 3 times. Each time felt like swallowing glass. But I didn't confront her, didn't leave angry notes or pack her things. I called an attorney instead. His name was Gerald Pritchard. He specialized in family law and fraud cases. I'd found him through a quiet recommendation from a colleague who'd gone through a difficult separation. I met him at his office on a Thursday afternoon. Brought printed copies of everything I'd found. Laid it all out on his desk like evidence at a trial. He read through it methodically, occasionally making notes, his expression neutral. When he finished, he looked up at me. "How long have you known?" 2 weeks. "And you haven't confronted her?" "No." He leaned back in his chair. Most people would have exploded by now, thrown her out, made a scene. "I'm not most people." He smiled slightly. "Good. That's going to help us." Over the next hour, he explained my options. We could file for fraud, pursue emotional distress claims, document financial damages. But more importantly, he said, we could wait. "Let her think you don't know," he advised. Keep gathering evidence. The more airtight the case, the less room she has to maneuver. So that's what I did. For 6 months, I played the role of the devoted fiancé, went to wedding tastings, approved flower arrangements, smiled for engagement photos. And every night, after Natalie fell asleep, I added to the file. I tracked her location using the app we both installed for safety. Found patterns. Thursday nights at the cabin in Pinecrest Valley, Sunday mornings at a cafe in Brookside. I hired a private investigator, not because I needed more proof, but because I wanted timestamps, photos, third-party verification that would hold up in any legal proceeding. The investigator's reports came back detailed and damning, pictures of them holding hands, entering hotel rooms, kissing in parking lots. I filed everything chronologically, created spreadsheets, built timelines. Natalie never suspected. She was too confident, too certain I'd never look. I remembered something she'd said once, months before I found the photos. We'd been watching a movie where a husband discovered his wife's affair. Men never see it coming, she'd said, laughing. They're too trusting. I'd laughed along, kissed her forehead. Agreed. Now, sitting alone in my office at 3 a.m, I realized she'd been telling me who she was the whole time. I just hadn't been listening. 2 weeks before the wedding, I met with Pritchard again. He'd drafted the affidavit, attached all the evidence, prepared everything for filing. "When do you want to proceed?" he asked. I thought about it, about the venue we'd booked, the 300 guests, the spectacle she'd planned. "After the ceremony," I said. "Let her have her moment, then we'll have ours." He raised an eyebrow. "You're sure?" "Completely." He nodded. "I'll arrange for the officiant to deliver it, 30 minutes after the vows. That gives you time to decide if you want to go through with it." But I already knew I would. Because this wasn't about revenge, it was about truth. And the truth was, I'd stopped being the fool the moment I started paying attention. The evidence lived in a fireproof safe in my home office, 300 pages, organized into sections with labeled dividers, every piece verified, every date confirmed, every lie documented. Section 1 was titled Financial Transactions. It started with our joint credit card statements going back 24 months. I'd highlighted every charge that didn't add up. The hotel stays, the restaurants in cities she claimed she'd never visited, the jewelry purchases she said were for her mother's birthday but I'd later seen her wearing. One charge stood out. $1,700 at a boutique in Silverton Heights. The date was February 9th, 2 days before Valentine's Day. She'd given Ryan a watch that weekend. I'd seen it on his wrist when we met for coffee, silver with a leather band. When I asked her about the charge, she said she'd bought herself a new work bag. She never showed me the bag. I pulled the transaction record, called the boutique, asked what had been purchased. The clerk checked their records. "A men's chronograph watch," she said, gift-wrapped. I added the phone transcript to the file. Section 2 was communications evidence. This was the hardest part to compile. Not because the evidence was difficult to find, but because reading it felt like excavating my own grave. Text messages recovered from the cloud backup. Emails archived in folders she thought were private. Even voice messages she'd saved in a hidden app on her phone. I'd found that app by accident. One night while she was in the shower, her phone buzzed on the nightstand. I glanced at it out of habit. The notification preview showed a name I didn't recognize. Cassandra. But when I opened her phone using the passcode she'd never changed, there was no contact named Cassandra in her address book. I spent 20 minutes searching until I found it. A disguised messaging app. The icon looked like a calculator. You had to enter a specific sequence of numbers to access the real interface. Inside were hundreds of messages, all from Ryan, all deleted from her regular messaging app, but preserved here like secrets in amber. March 23rd. Can't wait to see you Thursday. Sam thinks you're at a work dinner. April 18th. Do you ever feel bad lying to him? Her response, sometimes, but he's so clueless it's almost easy. I photographed every message, screen by screen. Then I factory reset the app so she wouldn't know I'd accessed it. Section 3 was location data. I'd started tracking this after I hired the private investigator. His reports included timestamps and GPS coordinates for every location where he'd photographed them together. The cabin in Pinecrest Valley appeared 15 times over 6 months. Always on Thursday nights. always when she told me she was working late or visiting her sister in Hampton Grove. I cross-referenced her location history with her calendar. Every Thursday marked as a late meeting or personal appointment corresponded with a trip to that cabin. I mapped it out, printed satellite images of the property, highlighted the dates in red. The investigator had also provided photos, Natalie and Ryan arriving separately, entering together, lights going on in the upstairs bedroom, lights going off hours later. One photo showed them on the cabin's front porch at sunrise. She was wearing his jacket. He was kissing her forehead. I placed that photo at the front of Section 3, let it speak for itself. Section 4 was witness statements. I'd been careful about this. Didn't want to tip my hand too early or involve people who might warn her. But there were 3 people who'd seen things, who'd been uncomfortable enough to mention it quietly. My cousin Olivia had seen them at a wine bar in Ashford Park. She'd texted me that night. Just saw Natalie with some guy, looked pretty close, thought you should know. I'd replied, probably a work colleague, thanks though. But I'd saved the text. Asked Olivia later if she'd be willing to write down what she saw. She did. 2 paragraphs describing how they sat in a corner booth, holding hands, laughing like people who'd known each other intimately. Natalie's own coworker had mentioned something too. I'd run into him at a coffee shop near their office. We'd chatted about work. He'd said casually, Natalie's been spending a lot of time with that vendor consultant. Ryan, right? They seem pretty close. I'd laughed it off, changed the subject. Later I reached out to him privately, asked if he'd be willing to document what he'd observed. He hesitated but eventually agreed. Wrote a brief statement about seeing them leave together multiple times, about hushed conversations in conference rooms. The third witness was the hotel concierge at Grandshire Inn. I'd visited the hotel myself, showed him a photo of Natalie and Ryan, asked if he remembered them. He did. They've been here maybe a dozen times over the past year, he said. Always check in under his name, always request the same room. I asked if he'd be willing to provide that information officially. He said he couldn't without a subpoena, so I had Pritchard get one. The hotel records came back detailed. Check-in dates, room numbers, charges to the room for champagne and late checkout fees. I added everything to Section 4. Section 5 was the prenuptial agreement. We'd signed one 8 months ago at Natalie's insistence. She'd said it was smart, that we should protect ourselves. At the time, I'd thought it was mature, responsible. Now I understood it differently. She'd been planning her exit, making sure that if things fell apart, she could claim her share of everything I'd built. But the prenup had a clause, Section 7, Paragraph 3. It stipulated that in cases of infidelity, the unfaithful party forfeited their claim to shared assets acquired during the relationship. I had read that clause 100 times since discovering the affair. Each time it felt like a small victory. Pritchard had highlighted it in yellow, added a sticky note, "This is your leverage." The final section, Section 6, was titled Pattern of Deception. This was where I documented the lies. Not just the big ones, but the small ones too. The accumulation of dishonesty that built a foundation for betrayal. I started with a timeline, created a spreadsheet with 3 columns. Date, what she said, what actually happened. January 15th. She said she was having dinner with her mother. She was at a restaurant with Ryan. February 3rd. She said she was going to a yoga retreat for the weekend. She was at the cabin with Ryan. March 20th. She said she was sick and staying home from work. Her location data showed she was at a hotel 30 miles away. The list went on, page after page, lie after lie. I printed it all, bound it with metal rings, created a table of contents. 300 pages of truth. I kept it in the safe behind a painting in my office. Sometimes late at night I'd open it, flip through the sections, remind myself why I was doing this. Not for revenge, not to hurt her, but because I deserved better than to be made a fool. 1 week before the wedding, I added the final piece. A signed affidavit from Pritchard's office. It summarized the evidence, outlined the legal claims, stated my intention to pursue fraud and breach of contract. All it needed was my signature to become official. I signed it the night before the wedding, sitting alone in my office, the house quiet around me. Then I sealed it in the manila envelope, wrote my name across the front, gave it to Pritchard with instructions to hand it to Reverend Hayes. The next morning, I woke up early, put on my tuxedo, drove to Brookhaven Estate, and I married her. Because I needed her to believe, right up until the last possible moment, that she'd gotten away with it. That I was still the clueless, trusting fool she thought I was. The officiant handed me the envelope 30 minutes after we said our vows. By the time Ryan stood up to make his speech, I'd already read every word. And I was ready. The ballroom erupted after I walked out. I didn't see it, but I heard about it later from my cousin Olivia, who stayed behind to watch the fallout. She said Natalie collapsed into her chair, sobbing so hard her shoulders shook. Ryan stood frozen at the microphone, still holding that ridiculous ring, his face cycling through confusion, anger, and something that looked like fear. My father had apparently stood up and pointed at Ryan. "Get out," he'd said, voice shaking with a fury Olivia had never heard from him before. "Get out of here right now." Ryan had tried to argue, tried to say something about how I'd manipulated everyone, how I was the real villain in all this. My uncle physically escorted him to the door, told him if he ever showed his face at a family gathering again, there'd be consequences. But I didn't know any of that yet. I was driving, windows down, cool evening air rushing through the car, heading toward my apartment in Willowbrook, the place I'd kept even after Natalie and I moved in together, the place she didn't know I still owned. I'd planned for this. Knew I'd need somewhere to go that wasn't contaminated by her presence. The apartment was small, one bedroom. Furnished with the basics I'd slowly moved there over the past 3 months. A bed, a desk, a couch, everything I needed to start over. I parked in the covered garage, took the elevator to the 3rd floor, unlocked the door, and stepped into silence. No wedding decorations, no photographs of us, no reminders of the life I'd just walked away from. I loosened my tie, poured myself a glass of water, and sat on the couch. My phone was buzzing non-stop in my pocket. Texts, calls, voicemails piling up. I ignored all of it, just sat there in the quiet, letting the weight of what I'd done settle over me. Around 10 that night, there was a knock at my door. 3 sharp raps, insistent and urgent. I looked through the peephole. Natalie. Her makeup was ruined, mascara streaked down her face in dark rivers. Her hair had come loose from its elegant updo. She was still wearing her wedding dress, the train dirty and torn at the hem. She knocked again, harder this time. "Samuel, I know you're in there, please. We need to talk." I didn't move, didn't make a sound. "Samuel," her voice cracked. "Please, let me explain. It's not what you think." I almost laughed. Not what I think. As if 6 months of documented evidence could be explained away with the right words. She kept knocking, kept pleading, started crying so loud I could hear her through the door. "I made a mistake," she sobbed. "Ryan manipulated me. He said things, made promises. I was confused. But I love you. I've always loved you." I sat on the couch, phone in hand, and started recording, audio evidence, just in case I needed it later. She stayed for 20 minutes, knocked until her knuckles must have been raw, begged until her voice went hoarse. Then, finally, she left. I heard her footsteps retreating down the hallway, the elevator doors opening and closing. I deleted the recording. Didn't need it. Didn't want it. The next morning, I woke to 17 missed calls, 12 from Natalie, 3 from Ryan, 2 from my mother. I called my mother first. She answered on the first ring. "Samuel," her voice was thick with emotion. "Are you all right?" "I'm fine, Mom." "What you did last night, walking out like that, I've never seen you so calm, so controlled." "I had to be." There was a long pause. Then she said quietly, "I'm proud of you. Your father is too. We always thought she was wrong for you, but we didn't want to say anything." That admission hit harder than I expected. They'd known, seen something I'd been too close to see. "Thanks, Mom. Are you coming home?" "We'd love to see you." "Not yet. I need a few days to sort things out." She understood, told me she loved me, hung up. I didn't call Natalie back. Didn't call Ryan. Instead, I called Pritchard. "I saw the news," he said when he answered. "News travels fast in a town like Autumn Ridge. How are you holding up?" "Better than expected. What's our next move?" "They're going to come at you hard," he warned. "Natalie will likely file a counterclaim, emotional distress, defamation, anything to muddy the waters and make you look like the aggressor. Let her try." We need to file first, get ahead of the narrative. I've already drafted the complaint. Fraud, breach of contract, intentional infliction of emotional distress. We're asking for full reimbursement of wedding costs, return of the engagement ring, and punitive damages. Do it. He paused. You're sure? Once we file, this becomes public record. Everyone will know the details. I'm sure. I'm done hiding her secrets. All right, I'll file this afternoon. 3 hours later, the lawsuit was official, filed with the county courthouse, a matter of public record. By evening, my phone started buzzing again, but this time it wasn't Natalie or Ryan. It was reporters. Someone had leaked the story to a local news blog. The headline read, "Groom walks out of own wedding after exposing bride's affair with best man." The article included details, the venue, the speeches, my dramatic exit. It painted me as either a hero or a villain, depending on which paragraph you read. I didn't comment, didn't confirm or deny anything, just let the story spread on its own. That's when Ryan made his first real move. He posted on social media a long, rambling statement about how I'd humiliated Natalie in front of everyone she cared about, how I'd set a trap, how I was cruel and calculating. He claimed I'd never loved her, that I'd only been with her for appearances, that the wedding was a power play to destroy her reputation. The post got traction. People who didn't know the full story started commenting, calling me controlling, abusive, a narcissist. Pritchard called me within an hour. Have you seen Ryan's post? I have. We can sue for defamation. This crosses the line. Not yet. Let him keep talking. The more he says, the worse he looks. You're playing a dangerous game, Samuel. I know, but I'm not worried. Because I had something Ryan didn't. The truth. And 300 pages of evidence to back it up. 2 days later, Natalie's attorney reached out. A woman named Veronica Ashford. She sent a formal letter to Pritchard's office requesting mediation. The letter claimed Natalie was devastated, that she'd made mistakes but deserved compassion, that I'd humiliated her publicly and caused irreparable harm to her mental health. It also threatened a countersuit. Intentional infliction of emotional distress, defamation, breach of privacy for accessing her phone and cloud storage. Pritchard forwarded me the letter. What do you want to do? Decline mediation. Tell them we'll see them in court. They're going to argue you violated her privacy, that the evidence is inadmissible. The cloud storage was shared. The credit cards were joint. The phone account was in my name. Everything I accessed, I had legal permission to access. They'll still try. Let them. We have the receipts, literally. He laughed, a short, sharp sound. You're colder than I thought. I'm not cold. I'm just done being warm to people who burned me. The mediation offer was declined. The case moved forward. Natalie tried one more time to reach me. She showed up at my office. Made it past security by claiming she was my wife and had forgotten something in my car. My assistant called me. There's someone here to see you. Says it's urgent. I looked out through the glass walls of my office, saw her standing in the lobby. She looked smaller somehow. Fragile. Nothing like the confident woman who'd planned a wedding while planning an affair. I told my assistant to call security, have her escorted out. She saw me through the glass as security approached. Our eyes met for just a second. She mouthed something. I think it was, please. I turned away, went back to my desk, focused on my work. 10 minutes later, my assistant knocked. She's gone. Thank you. That night, I got a text from an unknown number. It was Ryan. We need to talk, man to man. I blocked the number. Another text came through from a different number. I'm your brother. You can't just cut me out of your life. I blocked that one too. Then my mother called. Ryan's been trying to reach you through me. He wants to apologize. There's nothing to apologize for that would change anything. He's still your brother. No, Mom. He's the man who slept with my fiancée for 2 years and then tried to humiliate me at my own wedding. Whatever we were before, we're not that anymore. She was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, You're right, I'm sorry. I won't pass along any more messages. Thank you. The preliminary hearing was scheduled for 6 weeks out. Pritchard said it would be routine, a formality to establish the facts and set a trial date. But 3 days before the hearing, something unexpected happened. Natalie's attorney called Pritchard, said Natalie wanted to settle. wanted to avoid a public trial, wanted to make this go away quietly. Pritchard relayed the offer. She's willing to return the engagement ring, reimburse you for half the wedding costs, and sign a non-disclosure agreement. In exchange, you drop the fraud and emotional distress claims. What about Ryan? He's not part of this negotiation. She's distancing herself from him. I thought about it, about the ring I'd spent 3 months picking out, about the wedding that cost $40,000, about the house in Maplewood Heights that we'd furnished together. Counteroffer, I said. Full reimbursement of wedding costs. Return of the ring. She vacates the house within 30 days and relinquishes any claim to shared assets. And no NDA. I want to be able to tell my story if I choose to. She won't agree to no NDA. Then we go to trial. He called back 2 hours later. She agreed to everything. I felt something shift in my chest. Not quite relief, not quite satisfaction, just closure. Draw up the papers. The settlement was finalized 1 week later. Natalie signed without contest. The engagement ring was returned by courier. A check for $40,000 arrived 3 days after that. She moved out of the house on a Tuesday. I wasn't there. Didn't want to be. Just had the locks changed the moment she was gone. Ryan tried to reach out one more time, sent a letter to my apartment, handwritten. 4 pages of excuses and justifications and half-hearted apologies. I read the first paragraph. Then I threw the whole thing away. Because some people don't deserve your anger, they don't deserve your forgiveness, they don't deserve anything at all. They just deserve to be forgotten. The settlement should have been the end. Clean break, legal closure, both of us moving forward separately. But Natalie couldn't let it go. 3 weeks after she moved out, I started noticing things, small things at first, easy to dismiss as coincidence or paranoia. My office building's parking garage, I'd see her car. A silver sedan I'd helped her pick out 2 years ago. It would be parked 3 rows over from mine. Never close enough to be obvious. But there. I saw it on a Monday morning, then again on Wednesday, then Friday. I mentioned it to my assistant. She suggested I was being hypervigilant, that after everything I'd been through, it was normal to see threats where none existed. I wanted to believe her. Then I got a call from my bank. Fraudulent activity on one of my credit cards. Someone had tried to make a purchase at a boutique in Silverton Heights, the same boutique where Natalie had bought Ryan's watch. The charge was declined because I'd frozen the card months ago, but the attempt was logged, time-stamped. I called the boutique, asked if they had security footage from that day. They did. The manager agreed to review it. She called me back an hour later. I've got the footage. It's definitely a woman. Dark hair. She tried to use a card with your name on it. When it was declined, she left quickly. Can you send me the footage? I can't do that without a police report. I filed one that afternoon. Fraud. Identity theft. Provided the bank's documentation and the boutique's statement. The detective assigned to the case was a woman in her 40s named Linda Brennan. She reviewed the evidence with the kind of thoroughness I appreciated. This is pretty clear-cut, she said during our meeting at the station. Do you know who might have access to your credit card information? My ex-fiancée. We had joint accounts until recently. She would have had all the numbers memorized. Detective Brennan made a note. We'll follow up with the boutique, get the security footage. If we can confirm it's her, we can press charges. I don't want to press charges. I just want it to stop. She looked at me carefully. If you don't press charges, she'll keep doing it. People like this don't stop until there are consequences. I thought about that. About the parking garage, the attempted fraud, the pattern forming. What would you recommend? Let me get the footage. Confirm her identity, then I'll pay her a visit. Sometimes an official warning is enough. I agreed. The footage came back 2 days later. It was Natalie. Clear as day. Standing at the counter, handing over a credit card, looking frustrated when it was declined. Detective Brennan visited her at the apartment she'd moved into after leaving our house, a small place in Riverside Commons, cheaper than what she was used to. The detective called me afterward. I spoke with her. She denied everything at first. Then when I showed her the footage, she broke down, said she was desperate, that the settlement money was gone and she didn't have anywhere else to turn. Gone? It's been 3 weeks. She said she had debts, personal loans, things you didn't know about. That didn't surprise me. Natalie had always been better at spending money than managing it. What happens now? I gave her a formal warning, explained that any further attempts to access your accounts or credit would result in criminal charges. She seemed to understand. Thank you. One more thing, Detective Brennan added. She mentioned your brother, said he's been pressuring her for money. Apparently, he's in some financial trouble. Of course he was. Ryan had always lived beyond his means, always assumed someone else would bail him out. That's not my problem. I understand. Just thought you should know. I thanked her again and hung up. If Natalie wanted to play games, I'd make sure the board was locked down. That night, I changed every password I had, bank accounts, investment portfolios, email, social media, even accounts I hadn't used in years. I enabled two-factor authentication on everything, set up alerts for any unusual activity. If Natalie wanted to play games, I'd make sure the board was locked down. But the parking garage incidents continued. Her car, always 3 or 4 rows away, never close enough to approach me, just close enough to be seen. I documented every sighting, took photos, timestamped them, added them to a new folder labeled Post-Settlement Harassment. After the 5th sighting, I called Pritchard. She's following me. Are you sure? Positive. I've got photos, dates, times. This isn't coincidence. We can file for a restraining order. The pattern you're describing constitutes stalking under state law. Do it. The restraining order hearing was scheduled for 2 weeks out. In the meantime, I varied my routine, took different routes to work, parked in different sections of the garage, arrived at different times. Her car stopped appearing. But then something else started. Anonymous emails, sent from burner accounts, no names, no identifying information, just messages. The first one said, "You ruined my life. I hope you're happy." The second, "Everyone thinks you're the victim, but I know the truth. You're a monster." The third, "Ryan and I are getting back together. We're going to be happy, and you're going to die alone." I forwarded all of them to Pritchard. To Detective Brennan, added them to the harassment folder. Pritchard was furious. "This is escalating. She's not thinking clearly. What can we do? The restraining order hearing is in 10 days. These emails strengthen your case. In the meantime, don't respond. Don't engage. Let her keep digging her own hole." I didn't respond, but I did start looking over my shoulder more often, started locking my apartment door twice, started keeping my phone on me at all times. One night, around 11, I heard footsteps outside my apartment. Slow, deliberate, stopping right outside my door. I looked through the peephole, saw a shadow. Someone standing there, not knocking, just standing. I grabbed my phone, pulled up Detective Brennan's number, ready to call. The footsteps moved away, down the hallway, toward the stairs. I opened my door carefully, looked out, saw a figure disappearing around the corner, dark jacket, hood up. Couldn't tell if it was Natalie or someone else. I called building security. They reviewed the hallway cameras. The footage showed someone in a hooded jacket entering the building through a side door that should have been locked, walking directly to my floor, standing outside my door for 2 minutes, then leaving. Security couldn't identify the person. The hood obscured their face, but they filed an incident report, promised to repair the broken door lock. I added the security footage to my folder, sent a copy to Pritchard and Detective Brennan. The restraining order hearing arrived. I sat in the courtroom with Pritchard on one side and Detective Brennan in the gallery behind us. Natalie arrived late. No attorney, just her, looking exhausted, hair pulled back in a messy ponytail, dark circles under her eyes. The judge reviewed the evidence, the parking garage photos, the emails, the security footage from my building. He asked Natalie if she had anything to say. She stood, hands shaking. I never meant to scare him. I just wanted to talk, to explain. He won't answer my calls, won't see me. I didn't know what else to do. The judge looked unimpressed. So you followed him to his workplace? Attempted to use his credit cards? Sent threatening emails? They weren't threatening. I was upset. He read one of the emails aloud, the one about me dying alone. Asked her if that sounded like someone who just wanted to talk. She had no answer. The judge granted the restraining order, 50 yards. No contact, no third-party communication. Violation would result in immediate arrest. Natalie's face crumpled. She looked at me across the courtroom, mouthed something I couldn't understand. I didn't react. Just stood when the judge dismissed us and walked out with Pritchard. Outside the courthouse, Detective Brennan caught up with us. That should put an end to it. But be vigilant. People who escalate like this don't always respect court orders. I will. She handed me her card again. Call me immediately if she violates the order. Don't wait. Don't give her chances. I promised I would. That night I went home to my apartment, locked the door, checked the windows, set the security system. And for the first time in weeks, I slept through the night. But 2 days later, Ryan showed up at my office. He didn't make it past the lobby. Security called me immediately. There's someone here demanding to see you. Says he's your brother. Tell him I'm not available. He's insisting, getting aggressive. I walked down to the lobby, saw Ryan pacing near the elevators. His face was red, jaw clenched. When he saw me, he stopped. We need to talk. No, we don't. Sam, please, this has gone too far. Natalie's falling apart. She's barely eating, barely sleeping. You got your revenge. Isn't that enough? This isn't about revenge. It's about boundaries. She violated the restraining order. She'll face consequences. That's on her. She's desperate. She lost everything because of you. No, she lost everything because of her own choices. Same as you. His hands balled into fists. You always thought you were better than me, smarter, more successful, but you're just a coward who hides behind lawyers and paperwork. Security was moving closer now, 2 guards flanking him. I kept my voice level. You need to leave. Or what? You'll sue me too? No, I'll have you arrested for trespassing. The guards took his arms. He shrugged them off but didn't resist as they walked him toward the exit. At the door, he turned back. This isn't over. Yes, I said quietly. It is. They escorted him out, banned him from the building. I went back upstairs, sat at my desk, stared out the window at the city below. This should have felt like victory, like I'd won. But mostly, it just felt exhausting. That night, I pulled out the folder one more time. All the evidence, all the documentation, all the proof of betrayal and harassment and escalation. I didn't need it anymore. The restraining order was in place. The settlement was final. The case was closed. But I couldn't bring myself to throw it away. Not yet. Because sometimes the weight of proof is the only thing that reminds you that you weren't crazy, that what you saw was real, that you had every right to protect yourself. I closed the folder, put it back in the safe, and I started planning what came next. Not revenge, not closure, just life. The kind of life I deserved. Without them. 6 weeks after the restraining order was granted, I heard through mutual acquaintances that Natalie and Ryan's relationship had imploded. It started with money. Ryan had apparently borrowed $15,000 from Natalie shortly after our wedding disaster. Told her he was investing in a business opportunity, a startup that would make them both rich. The business never existed. He'd used the money to pay off gambling debts. When Natalie found out, she confronted him. They had a screaming match in the parking lot of her apartment complex, loud enough that neighbors called the police. By the time officers arrived, Ryan was gone. Natalie was sitting on the curb, crying into her hands. My cousin Olivia told me all this over coffee one Saturday morning. She'd stayed in touch with some of Natalie's friends, the ones who distanced themselves after the truth came out. She looks terrible, Olivia said quietly. Lost a lot of weight. Stopped taking care of herself. One of her friends is worried she's having some kind of breakdown. I stirred my coffee, watching the cream swirl into brown spirals. That's unfortunate. Do you feel bad for her? I thought about it. Really thought about it. No, I said finally. I feel bad that it came to this, but I don't feel responsible for her choices. She made her bed, now she's lying in it. Olivia nodded. Fair enough. I just wanted you to know, in case she tries to reach out again. She won't. The restraining order is still active. People do stupid things when they're desperate. She was right about that. 2 weeks later, Natalie violated the restraining order. She showed up at my parents' house during Sunday dinner. My mother called me immediately. Samuel, Natalie's here. She's asking to speak with you. She says it's important. Don't let her in. Call the police. She's crying, honey. She looks awful. Are you sure? Mom, she has a restraining order. She's not allowed within 50 yards of me or anyone in my immediate family. Call the police. Now. My mother hesitated, then agreed. 15 minutes later, Natalie was arrested. Violation of a protective order. She was taken to the county jail, processed, and released on her own recognizance the next morning. The court scheduled a hearing for the violation. Pritchard represented me. Natalie showed up alone again, no attorney, just her. She looked worse than Olivia had described, gaunt, hollow-eyed, like someone who hadn't slept properly in months. The judge reviewed the police report, asked Natalie why she'd gone to my parents' house when she knew she wasn't allowed. "I just wanted to apologize," she said, voice barely above a whisper. "I wanted Samuel to know I was sorry, that I understood what I did was wrong." "And you thought violating a court order was the appropriate way to do that?" She didn't answer. The judge sentenced her to 30 days in jail, suspended on the condition she complete mandatory counseling and have no further contact with me or my family. She nodded, accepted the terms, walked out of the courtroom without looking at me. I should have felt vindicated, should have felt like justice was served. Instead, I just felt empty. That night, I sat in my apartment staring at old photos on my phone. Pictures from before everything fell apart. Natalie and me at a concert. On vacation in the mountains. Celebrating her promotion at work. In every photo we looked happy, like people who had a future together. I deleted them, all of them, one by one, watching our smiling faces disappear into the digital void. When I was done, I opened the safe in my office, pulled out the folder. The 300 pages of evidence I'd collected. I didn't need it anymore. The legal battles were over. The restraining order was permanent. Natalie was out of my life. I carried the folder to the kitchen, turned on the gas stove, held the first page over the flame. Then I stopped. Not because I wanted to keep it, but because burning it felt too symbolic, too dramatic. Instead, I drove to a document shredding facility, fed every page into the industrial shredder, watched it turn into confetti. 300 pages, 6 months of work, gone in 15 minutes. When I got home, the safe was empty, except for one thing. The prenuptial agreement. I kept that. Filed it with my other important documents. A reminder that protecting yourself isn't paranoia, it's wisdom. Around this time, I started hearing about Ryan. He'd left town, moved to somewhere out west. Colorado or Nevada, nobody knew for sure. He'd burned too many bridges in Autumn Ridge, owed too many people money, had too much baggage. My father told me he'd tried to borrow money from our parents. $20,000. Said he needed it to get back on his feet. They'd refused. Told him he'd made his choices and needed to live with the consequences. "I hope we did the right thing," my father said during one of our weekly phone calls. "You did. He needs to learn that actions have consequences. That he can't charm or manipulate his way out of everything. He's still my son." "I know, Dad, but that doesn't mean you have to enable his behavior." My father sighed. "You're right. It's just hard, watching him throw his life away." "He's not throwing it away. He's choosing this path. There's a difference." We talked for a while longer. About my work, about my mother's garden, about anything except Natalie and Ryan. It felt good, normal. Like a life I could actually live. 3 months after the restraining order violation, I ran into one of Natalie's former coworkers at a networking event. A woman named Jennifer who'd always been friendly. "I heard about everything," she said carefully. "I'm sorry you went through that." "Thank you." For what it's worth, a lot of us suspected something was going on. The way she'd leave work early on Thursdays. The way she'd be on her phone constantly, smiling at messages. Why didn't anyone say anything? Jennifer looked uncomfortable. It wasn't our place. And honestly, we weren't sure. It could have been innocent. I nodded. "I understand." "She doesn't work with us anymore. Left about a month ago. I think she moved back home, somewhere in the Midwest." "Good for her. I hope she finds what she's looking for." Jennifer studied my face. "You really mean that, don't you?" "I do. I don't wish her harm. I just don't want her in my life." "That's remarkably mature." I smiled. "I'm just tired of being angry. It takes too much energy." That conversation stuck with me. Made me realize how far I'd come from the night I discovered those photos in the cloud storage. I wasn't the same person anymore. Wasn't naive. Wasn't blindly trusting. But I wasn't bitter either. Wasn't hardened or cynical. I was just more careful, more aware, more protective of my peace. One evening I was cleaning out my desk at home when I found something I'd forgotten about. A small wooden box Natalie had given me for our first anniversary. Inside was a handwritten note. "To my steady rock, Thank you for always being there. I love you more than words can say. I read it once, felt nothing, no anger. No sadness, just distance. I threw the note away, kept the box. It was well made, useful for storing cufflinks. That's when I knew I was healing. When the symbols of our relationship became just objects. When the memories became just stories from a chapter I'd closed. I started dating again. Nothing serious. Just coffee dates and casual dinners. Getting to know people without the pressure of building something permanent. One woman asked me on our second date if I'd been hurt before. Said I seemed guarded. I was, I admitted, but I'm working on it. Good. Everyone deserves a second chance at happiness. We didn't work out. Different life goals, different priorities. But parting ways was easy, friendly, no drama. It felt good. Healthy. Like something I could sustain. 6 months after the wedding that never was, I sold the house in Maplewood Heights. Too many memories. Too much baggage. I bought a condo downtown. Modern. Minimalist. Nothing in it reminded me of Natalie. I furnished it slowly. Deliberately. Each piece chosen because I liked it, not because it matched some vision of domestic bliss. My apartment in Willowbrook became my office. A place to work on side projects and business ventures. I was building a life. Not rebuilding. Building fresh. From scratch. And it felt right. The final legal loose end came almost a year after the wedding. A letter from Natalie's new attorney. Different from Veronica Ashford, this one was from a firm in Cincinnati where Natalie had apparently relocated. The letter was brief. Formal. It requested that I sign a mutual release of all claims. A legal document stating neither party would pursue any further action against the other. Pritchard reviewed it and called me. It's standard, basically drawing a line under everything. No more lawsuits, no more court appearances. Just a clean break. What's the catch? No catch. She probably wants to move on with her life. This gives both of you legal certainty that it's over. Do you recommend I sign it? Yes. Unless you're planning to pursue anything further, which I'm assuming you're not. I'm not. Then sign it. Close the book. I met with Pritchard at his office. He'd prepared the mutual release, both our names typed at the bottom, spaces for signatures. I read through it carefully, every clause, every stipulation, making sure there were no hidden obligations or loopholes. It was clean, simple, final. I signed my name, dated it, slid it across the desk. That's it, Pritchard said. I'll file it with the court. You're officially done. Thank you. For everything. He shook my hand. You handled this better than most people would have. Kept your head, followed the process, protected yourself. I had good counsel. You had good instincts. I just helped you document them. I left his office feeling lighter. Like I'd set down a weight I'd been carrying for so long I'd forgotten what it felt like to stand up straight. The mutual release was filed, processed, became part of the public record. Neither Natalie nor I would ever have legal claims against each other again. Whatever happened from here, we were separate, disconnected, free. 2 weeks later, I got a message on social media. From Ryan. It was short. I know I don't deserve forgiveness, but I want you to know I'm sorry. For all of it. I hope you're doing well. I stared at the message for a long time, thought about responding, thought about what I'd say. In the end, I didn't reply, just archived the message and moved on. Because some apologies come too late. Some damage can't be undone with words. And some people don't deserve the energy it takes to respond. Ryan and I would never be brothers again, not in any meaningful sense. We might see each other at family gatherings years from now, might exchange polite nods and superficial pleasantries. But the bond was broken, permanently. And I was okay with that. My parents struggled with it more than I did, my mother especially. She wanted reconciliation. Wanted her sons to forgive each other and move forward. But I explained it to her gently. Mom, forgiveness doesn't mean letting someone back into your life. It means releasing the anger so it doesn't poison you. I've done that. But that doesn't mean Ryan gets access to me anymore. She cried a little. But she understood. My father was more pragmatic. You protected yourself. That's what matters. Family is important, but not at the cost of your own well-being. That conversation meant more to me than any apology Ryan could have offered. The legal chapter closed quietly. No dramatic final showdown. No courtroom confrontation. Just paperwork filed and processed and stored in a cabinet somewhere. But the real resolution wasn't legal. It was internal. It was the moment I stopped checking my rearview mirror for Natalie's car. Stopped jumping when my phone buzzed with unknown numbers. Stopped carrying the weight of betrayal everywhere I went. It was the moment I realized I was genuinely happy. Not happy in spite of what happened. Just happy. Period. I'd survived the worst betrayal I could imagine. I'd protected myself. I'd held my ground. I'd refused to let their choices destroy me. And now, standing on the other side of it all, I was free. Truly, completely free. 18 months after the wedding that never was, I found myself volunteering at a community center in downtown Autumn Ridge. They ran a financial literacy program for people rebuilding their lives after major setbacks. Divorce. Bankruptcy. Job loss. I taught a class on protecting your assets and recognizing red flags in relationships. Shared my story without names or identifying details, just the framework. The lessons. A woman in her 30s approached me after one session. "Thank you for sharing that. My ex cleaned out our accounts before leaving. I felt so stupid for not seeing it coming." "You're not stupid, you trusted someone. That's not a character flaw. How did you stop feeling angry?" I thought about it. I didn't stop being angry overnight, but I redirected it, used it to fuel something productive instead of letting it eat me alive. Documentation, legal action, protecting myself. Eventually, the anger burned out because I'd used it all up doing something constructive. She nodded, eyes watering slightly. "I'm still in the angry phase." "That's okay, you're allowed to be angry, just don't let it become who you are." Teaching that class became something I looked forward to. Not because I enjoyed reliving the betrayal, but because helping others avoid the same pitfalls gave the experience meaning. One evening after class, I stopped at a coffee shop near the community center. While waiting for my order, I noticed a woman sitting alone by the window. She was reading a book, occasionally looking up at the street outside. Something about her seemed familiar, not her face, just the way she held herself, calm, self-possessed. When my coffee was ready, I walked past her table. She glanced up and smiled. Not a flirtatious smile, just a friendly acknowledgement. "Good book?" I asked. She showed me the cover, a mystery novel I'd read months ago. "So far, though I've already figured out who did it." "The butler?" "The sister. It's always the family member you least suspect." I laughed. "Mind if I sit for a minute?" "Please." Her name was Grace Harris. She worked as an architect. Had moved to Autumn Ridge 6 months ago for a job opportunity. Loved the mountains but missed the ocean. We talked for an hour. About books. About work. About the city and its quirks. When I finally looked at my watch, I was surprised by how much time had passed. "I should let you get back to your book," I said. "Or you could give me your number, and we could continue this conversation over dinner sometime." I smiled. I'd like that. We exchanged numbers. I left the coffee shop feeling something I hadn't felt in a long time. Hope. Not desperate hope. Not the kind that needs something to work out. Just quiet optimism that good things were still possible. Grace and I started seeing each other casually. Dinners, movies, long walks through the state park outside town. She knew about my past. I'd told her early on. Didn't want to build something on hidden foundations. "That must have been devastating," she'd said when I finished the story. It was, but it also taught me things I needed to learn. Like what? Like the difference between trusting someone and being naive. Like the importance of protecting yourself even when you love someone. Like how to recognize when something doesn't add up. Do you think you'll ever trust someone completely again? I considered that. I don't know. Maybe trust looks different now. Maybe it's not about blind faith. Maybe it's about informed confidence. Trusting someone because you've seen who they are over time. Not just who they say they are. She'd nodded thoughtfully. I like that definition better anyway. 6 months into dating Grace, my mother called with news. Ryan was getting married. To someone he'd met in Colorado, a woman named Amanda who worked in healthcare. "He wanted me to tell you," my mother said carefully. "He's not expecting you to come. He just wanted you to know." "Okay. Thanks for telling me." "Are you all right?" "I'm fine, Mom. I hope it works out for him. I genuinely do." And I meant it. Not because I'd forgiven him in some grand dramatic way. but because his life had stopped being relevant to mine. His choices, his relationships, his future were completely separate from my own. That's when I knew I'd truly healed. When news of my brother's happiness didn't trigger anger or bitterness, it just existed as information, neutral, distant. I never did find out what happened to Natalie. Heard rumors occasionally. That she'd gotten a job in Cincinnati, that she was in therapy, that she'd started over somewhere quiet. I hoped it was true. Hoped she'd found whatever peace she was looking for. Not for her sake, for mine. Because carrying resentment towards someone who no longer occupied space in my life was just another form of letting them control me. One Sunday morning, I was having breakfast with Grace at a small cafe in Brookside. Sunlight streamed through the windows. Jazz played softly in the background. She reached across the table and took my hand. "You seem different lately. Lighter." "I feel lighter." "Good. You deserve to be happy." "So do you." She smiled. "We're doing pretty well then, aren't we?" "Yeah, we are." Later that day, I drove past Brookhaven Estate, the venue where my wedding had imploded. I hadn't been back since that night. The gardens were in full bloom. Couples walked the grounds. Someone was taking engagement photos near the fountain. I stopped the car for a moment, looked at the building where I'd exposed the truth in front of 300 people. I didn't feel anger, didn't feel regret. I felt grateful. Grateful that I'd trusted my instincts. Grateful that I'd protected myself. Grateful that I'd walked away instead of staying in something that would have destroyed me slowly. That wedding was supposed to be the beginning of my life with Natalie. Instead, it became the beginning of my life without her. And that made all the difference. I drove away from Brookhaven Estate and headed home. To the condo I'd chosen, to the life I'd built. To the future I was creating on my own terms. Some battles aren't won with shouting. They're won in silence, with preparation and with the courage to walk away when something isn't right. I'd won my battle, not by destroying anyone, but by refusing to be destroyed. And in the end, that was the only victory that mattered. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.